What distinguishes human beings from animals? What exactly was the fruit from the tree of knowledge? And are we really the crown of creation? In this video, we will reach the final aspect of Burkhard Heim's classifications of living beings, those of human life. Hello and welcome to 6 Dimensions in Color. My name is Schmid and I explain to you Burkhard Heim's worldview in understandable language and with clear examples. We have come a long way in Heim theory so we can understand how consciousness enters into matter. Different levels of consciousness seem to correlate with the number or intensity of activity streams which are exchanged between the physical body and the psyche, which Burkhard Heim rather called the ill core. Burkhard Heim had this classification of different levels of consciousness, which he differentiated by their number of synchroclines. By this schematic, he classified all the forms of life that we encounter on Earth. Human beings here have 16 of these synchroclines, these activity streams. But this cannot be all. This cannot be all what sets us apart from the rest of creation, so to speak. So what is this final ingredient that makes humans so unique? It makes sense to have a look at our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, the higher primates or apes. It is known that chimpanzees use simple sign language to communicate with each other, so it made sense for researchers to try and teach them some basic human sign language. And it turned out that this worked really well. Chimpanzees can communicate on a normal basis as about on the level as of a 4-year-old child, human child. However, there is one thing that does not work in the communication with chimps: abstract thinking. A question simple to human beings, like "What do you want to eat tomorrow?" is a severe over-challenge for them. It's apparently only possible to communicate with them about immediate perceptions or immediate actions they are about to do. But nothing, with very few exceptions, nothing too abstract, like planning for the future, like checking different possibilities, etc. Humans, however, are able to abstract from their central perception. We are able to imagine things that are not there. We can play through different outcomes of situations in our minds. And last but not least, we can reflect upon ourselves. What does this mean in the Heim model? Within the constraints of this schematic, the activity streams shown here exclusively run between the physical body and the psyche, or the ill core. They only transport things that are related to central perceptions and physical actions. So they do not do not describe abstract things. Where do abstract things work on that? Well, imaginations or thoughts can invoke, in fact, strong emotions upon which we can act. And any kind of action must also be an activity stream. So where does it enter here? This activity stream must, therefore, come from another totality, and not only another totality, but even another realm of existence. And logically, Heim called this realm delta, or the pneuma, by the Greek word for spirit or breath. Or in other words, the mental realm. And since this mental realm is superordinate to the psyche and controls it to a certain extent, it must be situated on an intellectual level of totality 25. So from this is where human consciousness resides. And this consciousness has access to the psychological functions, at least some of them. It can control some of the biological impulses, more or less, and reflect upon the perception that are perceived. That's what our mental existence does, or it should do. Heim himself said he had the impression oftentimes that many people don't even use this ability of theirs. I would like to emphasize what this extent of freedom means. We can subordinate our psyche to a higher purpose. For example, recording this video here gives me a dry throat after some time, and I would have the biological urge to drink something. But because I want to finish this task first, I subdue this impulse and do not act upon it. I also know which foods are healthy for me and which are not, and I can act accordingly. I may have the desire to eat tons and tons of chocolate, but I don't do this, well, most of the times. No, you have to exert a certain discipline, of course. And at the end, that's what decides, are your desires winning or your reason? Of course, this is a quite serious question in life. Are your actions guided by a higher maxim, or are you just pursuing physical desires? No judgment for one way or the other. Freedom, the question of free will here means not to be able to do what you want. It means to have the freedom not to act, or not always having to act upon the atavistic impulses, the biological impulses that drive your autonomous system, your biological system. These abstract powers we can use to make plans for houses, machines, or computer programs, and we can put them into action in a meaningful, ordered way. And thus we can shape our environment to an extent which is completely incomprehensible to the lower forms of being, that is, to beings which do not have this ability of abstraction. The price we obviously have to pay somewhat is that we are somewhat disconnected from the background of being, from the rest of creation. Civilization expressions like to ground oneself, the necessity to ground oneself, to have one's head in the clouds, or to feel guilty in respect to a law or an ethical maxim or a deity. All this is the consequence that we are somehow set apart from the rest of it, from the background of animal being. Animals must experience their environment as something very immediate, something in which they are immersed and not feel themselves separated in any way. So all these are the consequences of us being, on the one hand, a biological being with all its atavisms, and on the one hand, an independent spirit which has its unique perspective and is like, as Heim has put it at the end, like its own separate universe, its own small separate universe. We are contradictory in ourselves, and we have to come to terms with it, I think. In my observation, those who accept that live happier lives normally. Now, Heim did not say that there is only level 25. Indeed, he said the mental realm has no upper limit. It's now easy to imagine that there is a level 26, from which consciousness reflects upon the level 25. There is no calibration scale of any kind, so you could say what is level 25, what is 26, or what might be 27, but maybe that's not the important point here. If you are a spiritual practitioner of any kind, you will get my meaning anyway. What I've been practicing for more than 20 years is the NATHAL method, and I also been teaching this for a couple of years now. NATHAL has been created by a German therapist, psychologist, and it's a method which enables you to on purpose access your intuition and gain knowledge through new emotions. It sets your brain into perfect synchronicity over the whole range of brain waves, of brain activity. The synchronicity of the brain means a synchronicity, of course, between information, that's what we usually call information, and emotions. Now, information, we usually think of today, in today's computer age, we think of something like ones and zeros that are stored somewhere. But that's not how our brain works. In fact, the data part of information is only a part of it. But we cannot omit it if we want to understand new things. If we want to understand new things and even perceive new things, generate new ideas, then we must include the emotional part. And the emotional part is always something very enriching. Those are feelings of happiness, of beauty, beyond anything that you have encountered before, because you haven't encountered the new information before. It's a highly effective training, and if you want to learn more about it, check out the link I put in the video description. We also do well to assume that our biological, psychological, and mental form of being is not the end of the line, that we are not the crown of evolution or the apex of everything that's possible. In fact, Heim was very open to the possibility that there might be beings that have another, in this table schematic, another duplication step, and would have 32 syntroclines. He said that would have nothing to do anymore with a human being. Try to imagine how far apart we are from the chimpanzees by just a few syntroclines. So how far apart from us might beings be which have a surplus of 16 other syntroclines on top of those we already have. They would have degrees of freedom, of perception and of action, which are completely incomprehensible to us, as we have degrees of freedom incomprehensible to the chimpanzees. It might well be that such beings have evolved on other planets in the universe, and that they are somewhat ahead of us, maybe by millions of years. And if they would come to Earth, they may not find us as interesting as we might hope we are. It's not very flattering thought, but they may just think of us as an interesting subject of study, as our zoologists study chimpanzees. And they also would not care very much whether or not contemporary academic mainstream repeats again and again that interstellar travel is impossible. Because we've been doing natural science for just a little bit over 200 years now. And those who have been doing natural science for 200,000 years, or maybe 2 million years, it would be safe to assume that they know a little better what is possible and what is not. A little intellectual humility is way in order here. Now, if you have subscribed to this channel already, you are on the way to understand the universe much better with the help of Heim theory than was previously possible, I think. I will continue with the big questions about human existence and the universe in 6 dimensions and in color.